Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India's Operation Mahadev crushes Lashkar-e-Taiba cell behind Pahalgam massacre. Pakistan Army accused of firing on Pashtun civilians in Tirah Valley. And Baloch families protest in Islamabad over enforced disappearances. India's counter-terror strategy has once again sent an unambiguous message across its borders. In a decisive blow to Pakistan-backed terror networks, Indian security forces have neutralized the Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives who orchestrated the barbaric Pahalgam massacre, killing 26 civilians. This breakthrough under Operation Mahadev comes on the heels of Operation Sindoor, targeting terror sanctuaries across the line of control, including in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The back-to-back missions underscore New Delhi's evolving counter-terror doctrine. Cross-border terrorism will be met with precision strikes, relentless pursuit, and uncompromising justice.
On April 22, a heinous terrorist attack was carried out in the Tirah Valley near Kashmir's Pahalgam by 3 terrorists affiliated with Lashkar-e-Taiba and its proxy, the Resistance Front. The terrorists opened indiscriminate fire on civilians, killing 26 people, 25 of them tourists and 1 local resident. In response to the massacre, India launched Operation Sindoor, a high-precision military campaign aimed at dismantling terrorist infrastructure across the line of control, including in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The operation was both strategic and symbolic, sending a clear message of deterrence. Building on the momentum of this campaign, Indian security forces recently achieved a significant breakthrough in Operation Mahadev. In a meticulously coordinated mission on the outskirts of Srinagar, they successfully neutralized the 3 Pakistani terrorists directly responsible for the Pahalgam attack. Among the slain terrorists, Suleiman, Afghan and Gibran, the first one was identified as the mastermind behind the massacre. Weapons recovered from the encounter matched those used in the Pahalgam attack, confirming their involvement. This development marks a significant success in India's ongoing counter-terrorism operations, reinforcing the nation's resolve to bring perpetrators of violence to justice.
Terror attack was carried out by Lashkar-e-Taiba and claimed by TRF, which later withdrew the claim because of the pressure. And ever since 22nd of April 2025, the day Pahalgam happened, security forces were trailing and were on the heels of this terrorist module. They did not allow them to get back to Pakistan. They did not allow them to merge into the population, and they did not allow them to get out of the jungles of Pahalgam and going right up to Dachigam and Mahadev Ridge. I have walked in those jungles as a young officer. They're very dense jungle. The navigation is very difficult. Visibility is not even 2 meters at places. Hats off to the team security forces which carried on with this operation for more than 95 days and finally hit this module yesterday and neutralized 3 main terrorists.
For the families torn apart by the Pahalgam massacre, the wounds are still fresh and the grief immeasurable. But with the recent breakthrough in Operation Mahadev, a long-awaited sense of justice has begun to emerge. For them, this isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. It's about ensuring that those who spilled innocent blood are not just named, but found and neutralized. And now, the justice is no longer a promise, it's a reality taking shape.
मैं यही कहना चाहती हूँ कि अभी हमारे परिवार पे बहुत दुख पड़ा है। अभी दुख की तो कोई बात ही नहीं कर सकते, पर ये अपनी सेनाएं जो काम किया है कि आतंकवाद को ख़त्म किया है, उससे मुझे थोड़ी शांति मिली है। और आगे भी कोई आतंकवादी हो झट से झट खात्मा करे, नाम निशान मिटा दीजिए आतंकवाद का। देश में जगह जहाँ जहाँ आतंकवाद है वहाँ उसको ख़त्म कर दीजिए।
आज मैं बहुत खुश फील कर रही हूँ इस चीज़ को सुन के कि ये लोग जो हाथ एक्चुअली पहलगाम अटैक में थे वो मारे गए हैं, वो ख़त्म हो गए हैं। और ये एक तरीके से एक बहुत प्राउड मूवमेंट है, क्योंकि उन लोगों को ढूंढ के निकालना बहुत मुश्किल की चीज़ थी। वो जिस तरीके से नाम बदल के जंगलों के बीच में अलग तरीके से शेल्टर बना के रहते हैं, इन्हें ढूंढना थोड़ी मुश्किल की चीज़ हो जाती है। जब आप सामने से लड़ते हो तो हमारी आर्मी को पता है कैसे लड़ना है, इन्हें ढूंढने के लिए हमें अलग पूरा एक वो बनाना पड़ता है, अलग एक पूरी टीम बनती है। एंड आई एम रियली प्राउड ऑफ दैट टीम कि उन्होंने ढूंढ के निकाला, इन्हें न्यूट्रलाइज किया है।
What happened in Pahalgam wasn't just an act of terror, it was a barbaric assault on peace and humanity itself. They gunned down innocent civilians, families who had come to the valley for peace, not war. It was a cowardice. But India did not respond with empty condemnations. It responded with fire, precision, and resolve. Operation Mahadev delivered the message loud and clear. If you kill our people, you will be hunted, found, and eliminated. Suleiman, Afghan, and Gibran, the names behind the massacre, are now just bodies in a morgue. These weren't just names, they were symbols of cross-border terrorism, nurtured and armed with impunity. But now, they're reminders that India's new counter-terror doctrine is clear. No one who spills innocent blood will escape consequences.
Pashtun atrocities continue to mount as the Pakistan army faces serious accusations of firing on unarmed civilians in Tirah Valley. What began as a peaceful protest over a child's death has turned into yet another chapter of bloodshed and repression. For decades, the Pashtun community has endured state violence under the guise of security operations. Now, with more lives lost, calls for justice grow louder. But in a system where silence shields power, justice remains distant.
In Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, a region long plagued by conflict, militarization, and marginalization, the cycle of violence shows no sign of slowing. Fresh unrest has erupted in volatile region, where the Pakistan army allegedly opened fire on unarmed civilians in Tirah Valley. At least 7 Pashtun protesters were killed and around 20 others were injured after soldiers reportedly fired live rounds into a peaceful demonstration. The protest has been organized in response to the tragic death of a child killed by earlier mortar fire that local residents blame on Pakistani military forces. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of horror and panic as bullets tore through the crowd made of largely grieving families demanding justice. Rather than diffusing tension, the military's violent response has only deepened public outrage. What began as a local protest has now sparked widespread condemnation from human rights organizations and ethnic minority groups across the region. Despite the bloodshed, the Pakistani state has remained largely silent, a familiar pattern in a country where military abuses are rarely acknowledged, let alone investigated.
The ongoing crackdown on the peaceful protesters in Pashtun region of KPK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, is not at all surprising. They have been committing these excesses for a long time, and that's what I call the state terrorism. Pakistan, which sponsors terrorist actors in various parts of the world, be it Kashmir, be it Bangladesh, or be it European countries, never shies away or never hesitates to resort to terrorism to control or to oppress its own minorities. They have killed many protesters in the past also. If you remember, in 2019 there was a Khar Kamar incident in which they killed 13 peaceful protesters of the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement. Later they arrested Ali Wazir in 2020, again a peaceful protester of Pashtun Tahaffuz movement. Before that they had killed Tahir Dawar. In 2019 Naqibullah Mahsood was killed, after which the protesters demanded action against against the Pakistani police officer Rao Anwar, who allegedly killed that Naqibullah Mahsood fellow, but Pakistan army never responded. They have been very high-handed, very ruthless against the Pashtun protesters in this region.
The assault in Tirah Valley is not an isolated act of aggression. It is the latest in broader systematic campaign of repression against Pakistan's Pashtun population, the country's second largest ethnic group. For years, the Pashtun community has borne the brunt of Islamabad's so-called counter-terrorism operation, which many believe serve as a cover for ethnic profiling, land seizures, and collective punishment. Civilians in Pashtun majority region face frequent military raids, drone strikes, and displacement, with little to no accountability. Earlier this year, the Pakistani army was accused of launching aerial attacks on civilian homes in tribal districts, killing several women and children. This incident, like so many before them, were met with silence from state institutions and indifference from the political elite.
The only agenda that Pakistan army has for these different ethnic nationalities is to use them for its strategic advantage and to rule them in a very brutal colonial manner, for which it uses its Pakistan army. And Pakistan army has an ill reputation across the world. It's an army which is completely identical with terrorist organizations. Previously, we used to say that Pakistan army supports terror organizations. But after the Pahalgam incident, we saw that many Pakistani generals attended the funerals of terrorist commanders in Pakistan. So now we can say that there is no difference between the terrorist organizations and the Pakistani army. There is an umbilical cord between them, and they are just two faces of the same coin.
The Pakistani military has long operated with impunity, particularly in border region where it exercises unchecked power. In this zone, entire communities are treated not as citizens but as enemy population, subject to extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearances, and routine torture. The latest massacre in marks a dangerous new escalation. By opening fire on peaceful protesters, the state has drawn a chilling line: control through fear, not justice; force over dialogue. Yet this brutal crackdown reveals a deeper contradiction. Pakistan's own policies are often the root cause of the terrorism it claims to combat. Decades of heavy-handed military operation, forced displacement, and repression have bred resentment and alienation among marginalized groups. Instead of fostering peace, this action fueled radicalization by creating a cycle of trauma and revenge. The military's so-called counter-terrorism effort have repeatedly turned into a theatrical display of forced raid, drone strikes, and bombing that devastate civilian population while offering little lasting security. This drama of military might serves to justify ongoing repression, but fails to address the underlying grievances.
Human rights violations in Balochistan remain a grave concern, marked by enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrests, and suppression of free expression. Recently, in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, the cries of Baloch families demanding justice are echoing louder than ever. For 2 weeks now, they have staged a sit-in protest demanding the safe return of their loved ones abducted by Pakistan's security forces. But instead of answers, they face police crackdowns and growing intimidation. We have a report. For decades, Balochistan has been Pakistan's most restive province, plagued by militarization and systematic exploitation. Rights groups, including Amnesty International and HRCP, have documented thousands of cases of enforced disappearances, with many victims never seen again. Now, the sit-in protest by the Baloch Yakjehti Committee has entered its third week in Islamabad. Led mostly by women and children, the demonstrators accuse security forces of abducting their relatives and detaining them in secret facilities. Among them is Rehma Baloch, who says her sister Gulzadi Baloch, a human rights defender and member of BYC, was forcibly disappeared before being transferred to jail and has been since denied all legal access.
मेरी बहन के नाम गुलजादी है। घर पे छापा मारकर उसे 6 घंटे के लिए मिसिंग किया। 6 घंटे बाद उसे उद्दा जेल मुंतकिल किया। जब हम उससे अगले दिन मिलने गए तो उसे बहुत ज़्यादा तशद्दुद का निशाना बनाया था और वो अपने साथियों समेत वहीं पे 4 महीने से ज़ायद बंद है। उन केसेस जो बाकी लीडरान पे लगाए गए उन पर भी लगाए गए हैं।
The BYC claims that authorities are deliberately blocking their protest from public view by parking buses around the site, an attempt to hide their peaceful demonstration from Islamabad's residents. This comes amid alarming figures on enforced disappearances. PANK, the rights wing of the Baloch National Movement, documented 84 cases of enforced disappearances and 33 extrajudicial killings in June 2025 alone, most targeting students and activists accused of sympathizing with separatists. Activists warn that even a remote link to Baloch rights advocacy or dissent can result in abduction by Pakistan's security establishment.
Pakistan wants to silence the Baloch people. They want to crush the Baloch national conscience, but they are failing to do so because the more they're suppressing the Baloch, the more the Baloch people, the Baloch youth, the Baloch people from all walks of life are resisting against this brutality. We see every day the news that the people are being picked up from different parts of Balochistan, and still hundreds and hundreds of people are protesting in Karachi, in Quetta, in Islamabad, in Turbat, in every part of Pakistan and in Balochistan. Wherever they can protest, they're protesting, they're raising their voice, they're on social media, they're telling the world, international organizations are, talking about this.
The issue of enforced disappearances has long tarnished Pakistan's human rights record. Victims include political activists, journalists, students, and human rights defenders, vanishing in what critics describe as a state-sanctioned campaign to crush dissent in resource-rich Balochistan. The impact is devastating. Families live in constant fear, torn between uncertainty and anguish, unsure whether their loved ones will ever return. Despite years of protests, Pakistan's government has failed to provide answers or accountability, deepening the climate of impunity. Once again, Pakistan's colonial-style neglect of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has been laid bare, this time through devastating floods. In Muzaffarabad's Bandi Mir Samdani, residents are wading through waist-deep water, their homes submerged and livelihoods destroyed, while Islamabad looks the other way. No relief, no infrastructure and no governance. Just the familiar pattern of abandonment that has long defined Pakistan's exploitation of this occupied region.
Pakistan's deliberate neglect and colonial-style exploitation of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir have once again come to light, this time through floodwaters. Following days of relentless monsoon rains, the residents of Bandi Mir Samdani in Muzaffarabad are wading through knee-deep stagnant water. Entire neighborhoods are submerged, shops are ruined, and homes have been turned into flooded shelters. But while the people suffer, the authorities remain invisible.
सड़क बनी है और ये पानी के जो रवायती रास्ते थे जिन रास्तों से बारिश का पानी दरिया में जाता था वो रास्ते बंद हो गए उस वक्त ये कल्वर्ट जितने भी इस रोड में थे वो बंद कर दिए गए। और उसके बाद ये है कि हुकूमत से ये मुतालबा है कि इस जो ये पानी है जो सड़क में आता है बरसाती पानी सारा, इसके लिए बाकायदा ज़मीन अवार्ड करके 2-3 जगह से, या जब तक ये मसला हल नहीं करती हुकूमत और पानी के लिए कोई भी जो है ड्रेन बना के इसको दरिया तक नहीं पहुँचाती, ये मसला आगे लोगों के घरों में पानी जाता है, लोगों को तकलीफ होती है।
Despite the severity of the crisis, Pakistani officials, both civil and military, have failed to act. There is no relief, no drainage machinery, and no one in power even acknowledging the suffering of the region's residents.
तमाम वीआईपी लोग इधर से गुजर रहे हैं, उनको नहीं पता यार ये लोग किस हालात में ज़िंदगी बसर कर रहे हैं। नीचे से जाके देखें लोग, मेरा ख्याल 5-5 फुट उनके घरों के अंदर पानी है। ये जो मुतलके हमारे एमएलए साहब भी हैं, अपोजिशन लीडर साहब भी हैं, आज तक उन्होंने आके ये नहीं कहा यार ये इधर के लोग ये क्या कर रहे हैं क्या नहीं कर रहे।
This is not an isolated failure. It's part of a long pattern of systemic discrimination and exploitation. Pakistan has always treated POJK as a buffer zone and a propaganda tool. Locals say the region is effectively abandoned. No infrastructure is built. No disaster preparedness plans are in place. And when tragedy strikes, as it often does, the administration disappears. Decades of empty promises from Islamabad have created a deep sense of betrayal and alienation among POJK's residents. Worse still, those who dare speak out are often harassed, silenced, or labelled anti-state general.
That's all in tonight's edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with deeper insights and sharp analysis on the stories shaping the region. Until then, do write to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team. Stay informed, stay safe.